Hey guys, before we get into the podcast, my name is Kent Axell. We have a great conversation ready for you guys, but more exciting, we actually have 2 scholarships for the Magic Mansion Mentalism Bootcamp with myself and Banachek coming up at the end of August. Those will be talked about at the end of the podcast, but if you want to find out more information about this 3-day full-on immersive amazing workshop environment, then just take a look at the link below and we will see you guys there.
Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the International Brotherhood of Magicians official podcast. So pleased to be with you here today, joined by Scott Cantrell and Ben Young. I am Jason Michaels. We are your co-host. We were just at the I.B.M convention, and we are going to talk all about that, but we're going to save it for one more podcast down the road, because today we have an incredible opportunity, and that opportunity is to interview 2 of the leading, I don't even know how to properly give the introductions here, to be honest with you, but we have the opportunity to interview Kent Axell and the legendary Banachek on the podcast here today. Welcome all.
Thank you for having us, my friend. It's a pleasure to be here.
Wait, we started?
We
Yeah,
have.
we did, yeah.
Yes,
Oh, cool. Okay. Conversational Kent. Be cool.
Kent just woke up. Look at his hair.
That's right.
This is how it looks when I do the show.
Yeah, and you usually just woke up right before the show.
It's good to talk to you guys.
Yeah, we're excited. You know, we've been doing the podcast now for about a little over a year and a half, and we get to occasionally interview folks and to get to interview folks that are legitimate workers and folks who have basically shaped the industry. I mean, the entire world of magic and mentalism has been shaped by both of your work. Banachek, certainly you've shaped just generations of mentalists and magicians who do mentalism and mental magic. Your work is touch the entire landscape. So thanks for being here, y'all. We really appreciate you spending some time with you. So Scott, Ben, normally I completely hijack this conversation and I talk the majority of the time. I'm going to try to pull back a little bit and let you guys run with it.
How kind.
I know. Okay. So if you guys have pressing questions that you want to dive into, do it while I'm giving you the opportunity.
There's a ton of questions. So
I thought there were going to be crickets right there. That would be great if you had played the little cricket. You know,
well, we're not really used to having the floor, so
it's true.
This is new.
This is new. I have tons of questions. There's no way we can get to all of them in time, but I'll start with something general, and this is for both of you. Either of you take it, both of you answer it, however you want. Again, we'll just start with a big question. Was there a single moment in your career, looking back over your respective careers, where something, a switch flipped in your mind in terms of how you thought about mentalism, specifically theatrical mentalism, and sort of your philosophy of performance? Or was it something gradual that happened over time? And maybe you can speak to a little bit about your respective philosophies of performance. We're just going to dive in to meaningful questions as fast as we can.
You want to go first, Kent? Or was that
okay. Yeah, that was signal was for you to take the
I didn't know. I thought you were just having like an LSD trip right there or something. I didn't know.
The thing that came to mind when you said that was 2 things. The first was that I started with magic, and I'm gonna just adopt the colloquial definitions of all these words just for the sake of the conversation, because mentalism is magic by any what are we even talking? Sorry, what are we even talking about?
Beep. All right, gotta do that. There's the first beep, and that's within the first 3 minutes.
No.
All right.
But yeah, I flipped from magic to mentalism when I kind of realized that it was sort of deeper in a way. Like it felt like it was hitting harder for some reason, and then I did everything in my power to make sure that I was separate from magic in mentalism, and that was like okay, yeah, because they're seeing this as something different, so this is really great. And I was really enjoying that sort of feeling that I got of being a demigod in front of other people that I wasn't really getting as much with things that methodologically or presentationally weren't sort of hitting as hard. And then, about maybe 10 or 15, my God, I'm old, like 10 or 13, whatever, about 10 or 15 years ago, I started to like really do the philosophical work about like what was happening there and whether I agreed with it or not. And then slowly magic started coming back in definitionally. And I was like, wait, this is just as good. This is just as good, if not better. And part of the reason I think was that mentalism sort of gave me, I wasn't as experienced a magician yet. And so when I started doing mentalism, of course, because that feels sort of more real, I'm going to get bigger reactions. But then I'm using that as sort of a shortcut. And then when you get to a certain place, you can bring sort of magic back into it, and you understand the theatrics, you understand the moments, and it ultimately doesn't end up making much of a difference. So now I will not call myself anything but a magician. If people call me a mentalist after they see the show, I actually kind of get a chuckle.
Interesting.
Yeah, which is interesting because I've always thought of mentalism as a subcategory of magic in a way. It's just another form. It's another label like illusionist or sleight of hand or card manipulator. So mentalism just kind of puts it in the area of like, okay, I'm not going to be manipulating cards tonight. Okay, I'm not going to be doing illusions. So I see it slightly different than Kent does, which is interesting, which we should all have our own take on these things and at least think about these things and what's right for us. For me, I started out doing what was known as mentalism, not knowing that there was a subcategory of magic called mentalism. All that I knew was that there were people that con people using tricks. And I didn't even think of them as magic tricks at the time. I started out because I had believed in Uri Geller, who was the famous psychic at the time that could bend and move objects with his mind. Now I think about it, and you think about it, and it's more like you think of those things as more like just magic tricks because they kind of look like it, except it's how you present it. And then because I went in and I convinced scientists for 4 years that I could bend and move objects, and I had other psychic abilities. That's how I presented it. I try to present it how psychics would present it. And unfortunately, or fortunately at the time, I had to pretend I was a genuine psychic, which was something that I hated. It was the exact thing that I was against, but I had to do it to set up this persona. Once Project Alpha was over with, now I could start searching and finding myself. So in the beginning, I was working supper clubs. After that, I was working comedy clubs. And then I was working trade shows. I was working corporate shows. I was working theaters. And each one of these areas, you think differently about how you present yourself in a theatrical way, right? And so you develop over time and you get these techniques and you realize that, hey, 1 week I'm working a comedy club, but next week I'm going to do a corporate club. I can't present it. I can present the same stuff, but I can't present it in the exact same persona that I would in the comedy club when I go to the corporate, because there are lines I can't do. There's certain presentations that I can't do that I was able to do in a comedy club. And the same thing when you go to trade shows, same thing when you go to theater. These are all completely different venues, and you have to present yourself differently. And you grow and you learn over time. I've worked pretty much almost every venue. I've even done magic on a helicopter. I've done magic on trains. I've done magic on planes. I've worked a theater for 10,000 people. So, and when you're on a stage like that, you have to own this area of 10,000 people. Whereas at the same time, I've done magic for like 5 or 6 people in a very small room. So you've got to pull in and close up. And you learn how to do this only through experience. So I don't know if I answered your question or not. So.
No, very much. Yeah.
They're more like prompts. They're guidelines.
Exactly. Yeah.
How do you adapt? Because Kent, you have your show Ghost Stories in Vegas. It's so like specific and so niche. Banachek, you're still out there like working. Like I think I see you doing like cruise ships and theaters and stuff like that for almost more of like a general audience. So, and you guys can both talk about this, but how do you make your show sort of accessible to larger audiences? I don't mean size, but just mean, I mean, if you're on a cruise ship and you've got families, people of all ages from all over the place. How do you make your show accessible for groups like that?
I think it's a matter of personality. I have filled in for Kent in his room, doing a bizarre type show, right? And
Which was awesome, by the way. I heard that it was from our mutual friend from Michael. I heard that it was his favorite time watching you perform.
And what that is I'm pulling myself in closer into this small group, right? And I'm creating a mystery that I can't create on a very large stage. On a large stage, it's as a mentalist, you don't have a lot of props. Some do, but the majority of mentalists do not have. And I'm using mentalist Kent just so that we can talk about what we do with the mind.
Of course, okay.
Faking stuff, okay? But you have to own that stage. You have to be able to pull in and focus everybody on you, even if you got the video behind you, and if you have the music. And if you don't have the music and video, even more so. I hate to say it and put it in this way, but people become your props in a way. You don't treat them like props, you treat them like people, and you have respect for them, but they are basically your props. It's where you set those people. It's the staging, it's the blocking, and blocking for the close-up is very, very different. Because you have this small little area, and usually in a small area, people can stay seated. Every once in a while, you might bring somebody up. But on a very large stage, more than likely, you're going to be bring people up, or they're going to be standing in the audience with a spotlight on them. So it's really the actual venue itself that you have to be bigger. You have to own it. It's the difference between, if you're watching a movie, if an actor is acting in a movie or an actor is acting on stage, there's a lot of actors that can't do both, because on a stage, they're so used to projecting themselves. And it comes over as fake when it's television or on a small screen. The good actors can actually do both. Well, I shouldn't say the good actors, because there are absolutely brilliant actors that can only do TV, but they could never work a Broadway production. And there's brilliant actors that can do a Broadway production, but couldn't do a TV. It's that rare individual that can actually do both, because they've had training in both areas.
Yeah,
I think this is I think this is really interesting because I heard, so I don't think a lot of performers think about it from the point of view of, sometimes you have to select your material based on the room that you're in. A lot of folks are just like, this is what I do and this is what I'm going to do. And what I'm hearing you say is that, hey, you have to take into consideration who's there. You have to take into consideration the capabilities of the room. Sometimes you have to walk into the room and see that it's not what they told you it was going to be, and then maybe have to make some adjustments. And to me, that's sort of I think maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's like as far as a performer goes, that's an advanced way of thinking, where it's like, I guess sometimes I talk to Ben and I say, do the show. What do I say? I say, do the show that's in front of you, not the show that's in your head. And I've heard other people say similar things, but I think that's a really important thing to point out, that is, if you've ever thought to yourself, oh, I have a plan and I'm going to stick to my plan, sometimes it benefits you to not stick to the plan, but to make adjustments on the fly.
It's like PK touches. There are situations where we'll do it with people sitting, and then there's other situations where I will do it where people are standing, depending on the venue. Ken?
Yeah, no, I just want to jump in. That's such a good thing. That's such a good thing to have in your mind, right? Do the show that's in front of you and not the show that's in your head. I love that. That's also going to swing back on something Banachek said earlier, which you were just talking about the difference between performing on Broadway or in a play and performing film, just from a performance arts standard. The show that's in front of you versus the show that's in your head, your ability to perform that show is going to be correlated to your preparation to deal with those variables. Because when you say the show in front of you, obviously you're going to be referring to something like the audience and the sort of flavor of audience that you have, the audience size, the venue size, your angles, all that kind of stuff. And so, if somebody's you can certainly prepare a show that can fit and that can expand and shrink to different audience personalities and different venue sizes, different angles. Like, all of that's possible. But if you don't have that, then yeah, obviously there are certain effects that you can't do if somebody can watch you directly from your right side or something like that. Or one time I was in Maine, I was watching a mentalism show, And it was on a raised platform. It was like a town hall kind of situation, right? We had all the seats on the floor, and they were put out. They were like folding chairs, and there was a raised stage at the front of all the folding chairs. And the gentleman was doing an ESP match trick on a table, which was still obviously not on the, so it was above the level of the audience. And I don't know if he had thought that that was a problem, and it was a problem because none of us could see what was going on. I mean, nowadays, obviously, anything can be expanded via some kind of technical setup, a camera, whatever. Like Haunted Key can now play for 20,000 people if you have the right setup. But yeah, I mean, if people get like flustered going into situations like new situations or nervous, it's just going to be correlated to their body's response to not having been dealing with those variables before, right? So when Banachek said the word blocking, for instance, I was like, sweet, that is like your ability to know what happens next without having to really think about it is so key to you being able to, especially being able to deal with new variables, right? Imagine having to deal with 10 new variables versus having to deal with just one, right? It's if you can go on the amount of your show that you can go on autopilot for, and I don't mean autopilot in terms of like, yeah, I'm just kind of like phoning it in, but I mean in terms of like, exactly what you're doing, and exactly how to handle this type of person and this type of angle and this type of lighting, the easier time you're going to have.
Well,
and so
to that, oh, go ahead, Kent, please.
Well, I just want to swing back to the actual the question, because I didn't get a chance to answer it, because it was something about like how do you draw an audience in? And for me, it's the Ghost Story show is a narrative show, so it's kind of like a little bit of a play-ish, and it's just 100% commitment. It's just 100% commitment, and they're kind of forced to join in by sheer force of will.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a drinking show, and if they want it to be a drinking show, they're going to be treated sourly in the room.
Yeah, it's interesting because Kent talked about how Michael liked the show that I did in that room better than the one that I did at the Strat. The Strat show was a very specific show because it was sponsored partially by a skeptics group. So I have to write it with that slant. It's not the typical show I normally do where I have fun with my audience and I play with my audience. There was a very strict, what would you call it? Way that I had to do that particular show, and yet it was an entertaining show in its own way, but a very different. And I think this is the thing, right, Kent? Preparation. How do you get that preparation? Well, usually it's hands-on. As I said at the beginning, I've worked almost every type of venue, and in my early days, I would take any and all gigs. Tyus France, which we both know, used to be my manager, and he quite often said to me, he said, Banachek, I often feel bad because I almost take every gig for you because I know you can handle every single environment when you walk in. But that only comes from experience. That comes from me forcing myself to be outside of my comfort zone so many times, so that when it comes to the good paying gig, the big paying gig, that I can handle every single situation, and it's not going to throw me off to the point where I forget that, oh, I was supposed to put the deck of playing cards over here, or, oh, I forgot to say this line. And you see that so often with people that are amateurs, that one thing goes wrong, it completely throws them off because they're not used to handling any and every situation. So if you're young and starting out, I always say work as much as you possibly can.
Or if you're starting out at all, like if you're like, regardless of being young, like you have to put the reps in, you have to.
The young is basically what I'm saying is young in the business, not necessarily young as an age. So yeah.
Sure. One thing to just throw in there is that when we say reps, a lot of people, they get in their head, okay, how do I get these gigs? How do I get these reps? And there's a lot of ways to do that. Like I go over this. I have like a Facebook page. I do like a 3-hour video on how to like start a corporate career. But there's a lot of ways to get those reps and to find those places, to perform places, to be bad. You need something like that. But you can also create those reps without the performance environment, just to get the stuff that's unnecessary, that you don't need a people there
the muscle memory for the routine.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You can rehearse your blocking. You can rehearse your script. If you have a script, I highly recommend a technique called fast and loud. I recommend that to everybody. If you can't do fast and loud, then you don't have your script memorized.
My problem is I'm always too fast.
Well, can I put that technique out real quick and see if people? This is going to be incredibly painful. Scott, you smiled. You seem like you know what this is already.
Kent, it sounds like how I like my Kent. It sounds how I like my women.
Setting that just aside real quick.
All right.
So, yeah, fast and loud is basically you take your script, and so many people, I'm sorry, I'm circling the drain already. I can feel myself, but try to catch my tangents and pull me back if I need to be pulled back. But so many people think that they have memorized a script, but they really, really super duper haven't. And they also think that they've made choices, like acting choices in the script, but they really, really super duper haven't. I'll tell you what I mean. So the exercise fast and loud is basically you're gonna look straight forward. You're not going to do any punctuation. You're only going to breathe where you intended to, right? In your script that is written down, you will have breath marks where you're going to breathe, right? This is where I plan on breathing because this is the natural place to breathe. Then you're going to do no punctuation, no acting, none of that nonsense. You're just going to say your script as loud and as fast as you possibly can with as much articulation as possible. And the goal of this is to, number one, expose where you have not memorized your script, because while this sounds like it's not too challenging, it's incredibly challenging. A script that you've done 1,000 times, I virtually guarantee you will falter in the second sentence. And so when you do that, you realize, okay, this is the part that I don't have memorized. And so in order to memorize a script, what I do is I go to the last sentence of the script, the very last sentence. And then I say that sentence a couple of times. And then in my brain, this is very much a rote memory thing. In my brain, not in my brain, sorry, out loud and in my brain, I guess, I'll do it fast and loud 10 times, right?
And you're not talking about the line of "thank you, good night." You're talking about the line before that.
Yeah. Well, no, it could be "thank you, good night," right? Because I want that in my head too. Okay, I want to not think about any of it, especially in terms of like if you're a storytelling magician, if you're somebody who does like less. Like when there's chunks of less audience interaction, right? And you have 3 or 4 or 10 or 20 sentences that you have to say, this is how to do it. Go to the last sentence 10 times. Then without the script 10 times. Then you go to the previous half sentence before that. This is a hack to disambiguate the meanings of the words and just get them into muscle memory. So you go to the last half sentence and you do the last half sentence and the last full sentence 10 times. When you do it successfully without looking at the script, fast and as loud and as fast as you possibly can, then good, you're great. DLP, dead letter perfect. Move on to the previous move on to halfway through the previous sentence. Do that until you're at the beginning. Doing it from the end like this makes it such that as you're going through the script, you're 10 times at the end, you're actually becoming more comfortable with it as you go, right? And then you just have to have sort of some kind of trigger if you want to do a mnemonic trigger to begin the script. But by the time you can do that whole script 10 times in a row, fast and loud, without making a single mistake, that's when you have a script memorized, right? And then you can start doing your acting stuff. Then you can slow it down and be like, okay, what makes sense? And this is, just as an example, this is what I see so often in people who have not memorized their script. I see people do a line and then take a dramatic pause and then do the next line. And what they've done there, almost guaranteed, I go, can you do this fast and loud? And if we're talking about it, if they want my advice, I say, can you do this fast and loud? Everywhere they falter, where they don't have it memorized, is where they have very cleverly inserted the dramatic pauses for theatrical reasons.
Shatner style.
Like, interesting.
Yeah, it's like, no, sir, you have not. You did not decide that that's a place for a pause. You are pausing there to remember what comes next.
That's interesting.
And
yeah,
so yeah, if you can do it fast and loud, now all of a sudden you're making decisions.
There is a trap with that, though. You should do that, of course. You should learn your script. You should know your script. But at the same time, because you are working with live audiences, you need to know how to take that moment that comes up in the show itself and not have it throw you off, which is what I mentioned earlier. Sometimes somebody will yell something out, do something, and there are times when you ignore it, but there are times you play off that as well. But then you need to come right back into your script, and that's where the fast and loud will actually help you, because you can do it from any point, any place, and jump right back into it. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't miss those moments of being personal with the audience, reacting in the moment, or going off on a little tangent for a second away from it, unless you're doing storytelling. Then that's very, very different, because you kind of want to almost stay with that story.
Well, no, you still do the same thing in storytelling.
Well, depending where it is, because if you're trying to build tension within your story that you're telling, sometimes you don't want to go off into a funny area because you're leading to this point. And that's a thing of knowing your intentions, knowing your story, knowing where you're going, and knowing why you're doing what you're doing in those moments.
That's definitely going to be a matter of reacting to an audience member's interruption in a way that is appropriate to the mood.
Exactly.
And so, like, obviously, fast and loud is not it's a remedy for having not memorized a script, and a test for memorizing, for whether you've memorized it or not. It's not a prescription on how one ought to perform. That would be really bad.
Right.
Exactly. Although that would be an interesting show for about 2 minutes.
Yes, it would be. Yes, I can pack an hour of magic into about 45 seconds.
Basically, you don't want to end up going on autopilot, and because I do see a lot of performers doing that. They've memorized their lines, and then they're just on autopilot, and they don't know how to deviate from that at all, and so they lose their personality within the performance itself. And they almost do it like you're doing a play. You're doing a play, somebody does something in the audience, you still have to continue with that play in the moment, unless it's a comedy play, of course, and you can pay attention to it.
Yeah.
The underlying note here, and I love the back and forth and looking at these issues from different perspectives. The thing I wrote down was preparation, like extreme preparation, not extreme, but appropriate preparation, like you guys are talking about, is the tool, is the thing that allows you to be present.
I think extreme is a good word for this. I mean, it's going to. It certainly will feel extreme. And the reason that I want to say this is because magic is, and to me, I mean, this might start a debate, but just go with me on this for a second. Magic is one of the only art forms that I can imagine where you are almost required to get more credit than you deserve. And when it's like, it's baked into the pie, like you actually kind of, if you're getting less credit than you deserve, then what's the point of the secret? Right? I don't understand. Or if you're getting equal credit, then you can just actually learn that skill. But you know what I mean? Like, Chris Michael's now doing Witch Hand without any gimmicks, and perfect. That's exactly the right amount of credit, right? I am getting the same amount of credit as him when I use a little thing, and he's worked way harder in that than I have, right? And so so the reason that I say extreme preparation is appropriate is because maybe it just is appropriate preparation, but I mean,
it's extreme compared to the standard.
It's this thing in the magic community where it's like, everyone has been told that they belong on television if they can successfully pull off a trick, and that is like really, it's good in some ways. Like, magic is this lovely, amazing art form, but ultimately at the end of the day, it's a performance art, and you get through this craft part or this art part or whatever, and people go, "Oh, that's so amazing! You're so great! You're so wonderful!" And then if the performance part is less prepared, they might still say that because they're so amazed by the trick, right? And that's ubiquitous in the magic community. And so when I say extreme prep, or when I comment that extreme preparation is appropriate, it might just feel extreme, but it might just be appropriate. Like if somebody who's not doing magic is a performer, then they will rehearse their monologue, for 2 or 3 hours a day, and they'll get it up on stage, and they'll have somebody pick it apart and destroy their ego and all that stuff. Magicians do not do that, right?
fragile egos.
Well, yeah, maybe. I mean, and maybe it's just that it's not necessary because the performer without the magic trick has to be really good.
Yeah.
You know, and so that's the goal is to focus a little bit on the performer aspect of it.
So let me ask a question because I think it's really interesting that both of you in your own ways have approached this conversation so far, referring to things like plays and acting choices. When you say something like blocking, that's a tool from the theater. I mean, these are obviously you have backgrounds that are performance backgrounds. I'm just wondering, from a theatrical standpoint, from a live performance standpoint, where that comes from for each of you. Like for me, like I got into theater when I was a teenager and then I studied it in college. And so like that's where I learned like the theatrical techniques. I mean, it sounds like Kent, you have maybe you also have studied a lot of theater. Banachek, I honestly don't know as far as you, but I'm very interested in that answer from both of you because you're both approaching this from a very, very live performance theatrical, using theatrical techniques to sort of enhance or help create the experience that you're creating.
Yeah, mine came through the years of performing and knowing where things weren't right. If I'm bumping into a table, I know that that doesn't look good, right? It also comes from videotaping my shows and taking a look, what looks good, what doesn't look good, asking other people what looks good, what doesn't look good. There was a point I got into a habit of having a table on the stage. And I would come out and I would almost be standing on a stage, standing behind that table the entire time. And I did that for like 2, 3 years. And it wasn't until I went back to looking at videotape of myself that I went, oh my God, that looked so bad. And nobody had told me, right? Nobody said anything to me. And I wish somebody had have said something to me. But it really comes from hanging around other theater people, other performers, watching myself and knowing what looks good and what doesn't look good. We talk about these tools, and that's what these things are. They're tools. But it also, I think the performer has to know their character, who and what they are, because there are some performers that are not trying to be theatrical. They're just trying to be funny. They're trying to be in the moment. Take a David Williamson, right? If he just went, he has a basic script, but if he just went specifically on that script, he would no longer be funny because he plays every single moment. A child is doing something, he plays off that. The adult is doing something about their child, he plays off of those things. So I think it's really important that you do understand your character, you do understand your purpose, and you do understand where you're trying to go with your actual performance. Is it a storytelling performance? Is it a theatrical performance? Is it a much more of a loose performance? And are you just saying it's a loose performance because you are lazy and don't want it to be a more of a strict? There are a lot of performers say, oh, I do that just because that's me. Well, have you taken a look at that? Because it really looks effing bad, and you're not as funny. You're not as funny as you think you are, or you need some extra lines. You need these things, and it's because you don't understand your character. And I think that's a really important element for all performers to understand who and what they are, not just make excuses for their poor performance.
And if I can just jump in there, yeah, that is completely correct. There are. This is part of the, Banachek. I used to stage manage for Banachek when he was doing his show here at the Stratosphere, and that's one of the highlights of my career. Honestly, it was so much fun and so cool watching you do your work, and I learned so much. And it would always be, regardless of whether Banachek has any formal theatrical training. What you can see is the reps. What you can see is the reps, and what you can see is the still. Now you've got your own intuitions about things. We'd butt heads on some theatrical stuff and some decisions, but ultimately the thing was that there was a 1% improvement every time, as much as is possible. So really, at the end of the day, we could sit here in armchairs and philosophize as much as possible. But if I could say to somebody, you could either listen to me talk about theater and about how this works and about how you should do your thing or whatever for 6 hours, or you can go perform 6 1-hour shows I would say go perform the 6 1-hour shows. As long as you're able to pay attention to what the, where your improvements can be, and if you improv something, write it down, or like, nothing beats doing it, right? Nothing beats doing it. And just to tag on to what Banachek said a moment ago, yeah, it's really hard in conversations like this to talk about what to do. It's easy to talk about what not to do. And there are some what to do's for sure, but Banachek hit on one that's a not to do really good. Like there was a magician, I was watching his show in New York, and he couldn't remember anyone's name. He couldn't remember a single person's name, right? And it was like, okay, that's probably inadvisable, I guess. But I talked to him afterwards, and I go, hey, we were talking about the show, and he's like, oh, do you have any criticisms? And I'm like, let's start here. Let's start here. And I go, you know what? You seem like you can't remember anyone's names. Do you need some techniques for that or anything? And he was like, oh, no. It's just that my character can't remember people's names. And the character is like sort of a bumbling, guy, and he can't. It just so happens to be that this person was also kind of a bumbling guy who had trouble remembering people's names. And it's like, he wants to give himself credit for like making this character and making all these theatrical decisions. And it's like, bro, like, I don't know. Are you actually a good person if you're not a threat to anyone? Like, are you choosing this, or is this just how it is? Right. And it's like, yeah, you're not making any theatrical decisions. You're just putting yourself on stage doing magic tricks, and you can't remember people's names. That's not a choice. Show me a show where you remember everyone's name, and then I'll know that it's a choice.
Right.
So here, I'm going to put a little pushback on that, because I have a problem with names, and I give memory seminars. I teach how to memorize names. But my biggest problem is I'm dyslexic, and majorly dyslexic. And a lot of people don't realize that, right? So I try to remember names. I will be on stage. I'll repeat the names. I'll create an image with their face or something they're wearing in that particular moment. I do all these techniques, and it doesn't work for me. So I have other ways around this. Like, for instance, that guy could have very easy if that really is a choice for his character, and it's not that he has some sort of handicap or something like that, but he's saying it's a choice for his character, then make that happen within the performance itself.
Hang a lantern
a perfect example of that would be to go, what's your name? John. Okay, I can't remember names. I'm going to call you Bob from now on. And now he's calling him Bob, throughout the thing. Now it becomes a thing. It's not just him making up an excuse, because the audience if he's telling you that, then he's not done something about that to let the audience know that's what it is. It's part of his character, right? If you're going to make that choice as part of your character, you have to somehow get that across to the audience in your performance itself.
Yeah, and you would have been a good person for him to talk to if his response was, I literally can't remember anyone's names. I'm just like, I am dyslexic, or I have some kind of inability. And right. No matter how much I practice, I really try, 4 hours a day, I really try, and I just can't do it. If that was his response, I'd be like, okay, go talk to Banachek, because he has things for that, or I can help you with things for that. But that wasn't the response. The response was,
exactly.
Effectively, I have made a very smart theatrical choice,
which he hadn't,
that I am not going to remember people's names as a character decision. And it's like, oh, okay, well, that tells me how the rest of this conversation is going to go. And it's not going to go well, so that's my only note.
So it could be funny if he called a guy by the name of John Jane or something like that. Well, I was close, but then he kept doing it every once in a while. I had this continuing line. Now it looks like he's a bumbling idiot, right?
Sure, otherwise, ways around it, for sure.
When you see my show, you probably wouldn't even know that I don't remember names, or maybe you would. Kent, you probably would, because you saw me a million times. But
yeah, you barely remembered my name.
Because there are moments within the Q&A. Well, I used to do that on stage. I would call my stagehands by their other names. I would call Nashawn Troy and Troy Nashawn. I can hit it now, but when I was in the moment on stage, and they would look at me dirty looks. I'm like, guys, I'm not doing that on purpose, right? So yeah, it was interesting. But because I do the Q&A and I do things like that, it looks like I can actually memorize names in that moment, right? But I'm not. I have to work really, really hard to retain that information, and I have backups in case I can't remember that information. I always make sure I have those backups for me. It was, and then there was always times throughout the show where I would get somebody's name, one person's name, and so because I used their name, it would seem like I can remember names, when in reality, I had such a freaking hard time doing it, and I still do.
Yep. Ben, I want you to get in on this, man. You got any?
I mean, I feel like
questions?
we're just blowing magicians' minds on this.
I kind of feel the same way.
because and Banachek, brought this up, but a lot of magicians just sort of say, oh, well, I'll just sort of say whatever in the moment. Like, I'll kind of figure it out as I go. And maybe you should sit and actually write a script, even if it
I don't
is
want to
something
be locked into the script, they'll say.
Exactly.
Oh God, that's the worst.
Yeah.
But even if you're not a storyteller, even if what you're doing is kind of procedural, actually sit down and write it out, because then, like we talked about, you can go off the script because you know what you're supposed to do. This is just, it's so good. This is really good stuff. I do have a question though that's off topic, but we
Fire away.
Go ahead.
What is one of the biggest challenges of performing mentalism today, like in 2026? Because I imagine that there's been different challenges throughout the years. And so what are you sort of facing? Is it that people really want to believe that it's real? Is it, them thinking that it's all done with technology, or what? What's difficult?
I think the technology is an issue, and that's why you have to be very careful about how you distance yourself from that technology, even when you're using that technology. And I see that a lot of times with people that are using, like, maybe an electronic die, right? It becomes all about the die. When I perform it, it's not about the die. The die is just incidental. It's a way to get a number, but I'm working with them one-on-one. It's about them. It's about me. It's about me reading the cues that they're giving off. I try to take it away from the die when I'm actually doing the presentation itself, whereas other guys will have them look at the die, concentrate on the die, and it's all about that die. So they start thinking, oh, maybe it's something to do with the die itself. Go ahead.
Can I just jump in and ask you, Banachek, like, as for an example, like when you say we're not going to, I don't want to be focused on the die. A lot of times when I'm just as a heuristic, when I hear people doing lectures or whatever, sometimes the what to do in terms of philosophy or theater is some kind of like vague or a little bit unexplained. I really want to get some meat out of this. So, like, can you give us like 3 examples of how you take the attention away from the die that people can literally just put into their die routine right now?
I don't want to give them my die routine. And on top of this is also out there for the public too, Kent. So I'm trying to like couch it just a little bit. But it would be about like the first time I'll give you the sections of it. Like there's certain sections of this particular routine where I talk about the first 2 times I'm going to go ahead and I'm using their conscious mind. In the end, the last time as they move it, they don't look. I'm going to be using their subconscious mind. They look at the audience. The audience is looking at them. You'll be able to see when that person is lying. And the way that I do it is, like I said, I'll say I'm going to ask you questions, and you're going to say no every time. One time you're going to be lying. You won't even know you're lying because your subconscious will know. That's because they've moved it on their hands multiple times. And I have a way of getting it to where it's on the 3rd one, they almost always do something. Not every single time, but the majority of times. And I'll give a little bit of this because this is how I play this whole routine up throughout, right? And it's a thing of like, is it a 1? Is it a 2? A 4? And because I changed my phrasing, they do something usually in that particular moment. And a lot of times they start to relax on the 3rd one anyway. And the audience sees that. And if the audience, I say, how many people saw that? It becomes about the audience. It becomes the audience with that person. It's no longer about that die. It's about what is that person doing as opposed to what number is actually on the die itself in that particular moment.
It's just like what you were saying earlier, that your audience members on stage are the props, and not in the bad way. The objects you're
Yeah,
using are kind of the means to an end, but really it's about
The focus
what
is
you're
on
doing
them.
with the people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think we have to often be careful with how we phrase these things when it goes out to the world out there, because people are so sensitive and they get triggered so freaking easy now. I remember I was at a convention one time, and Kenton Kneppe was talking about when we manipulate people, we blah 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 blah.
Great name on that guy.
A couple of ladies got so upset because he used the word manipulate. And I was like, so should he be saying psychologically direct people? And they said, well, that's much better. I'm like, but it's the same thing. When you're psychologically directing people, you are manipulating people. A good therapist manipulates you into helping yourself. He gives you the tools. And so it's just people get so sensitive with these words. But I think we're in a safe space when it comes to talking about these things as performers and not focusing on those things so much. Sorry.
No, it's great.
Great
This is
note.
great. This is great. This is great conversation.
Well,
I love
one
this.
thing this is related to everything we're talking about. But looking at kind of taking a step back or step up, I think both of you alluded to this. There are magicians who are entertaining, and that's fine. That's great. Fantastic. They check the box. Entertainment. Great. Maybe the trick is, the trick itself, the effect that happens gets most of the credit. The performer takes some of the credit. It's entertaining. Fine. But there is a difference between creating a moment of entertainment on stage for an audience that they might enjoy. Maybe they remember, maybe they don't. They makes them feel good. They leave. Yeah, that was good. There's a difference between that and a performer creating a truly unforgettable experience that in the mind of an audience member or multiple audience members could actually impact them in a meaningful way. Even if it's something as simple as I'm going to change the way I think about X, Y, or Z. Can you guys speak to that power and what the difference is between someone who's entertaining and competent and that was fun, as opposed to actually being able to have that impact on an audience that life-changing is not an overstatement in some cases?
I can take the reins on that if you want.
Yep, and I'll back up.
I have no desire for the magic tricks themselves to do that, and this is a really hard line to cross, because if you're going to change someone using techniques that are, I don't know, deceptive in nature, if they're going to change their belief structures or something like that because of a lie that you've told, even if the lie points to a greater truth, I find that to be kind of distasteful. So, if somebody comes away from a performance and says something like, "Oh, I'm a believer now," and oftentimes people will say that to me, and they're saying it rather tongue in cheek, I think. But if they really do mean it, like if you're setting out to have people think that that it is really possible to know what someone's PIN code is by their body language or something like that, then it is challenging for me to accept that for myself. Like, I have a huge aesthetic problem with that, at least, and I may have a moral problem with it too. In terms of actually changing people, what I'm interested in, and this is the thing that's kind of what's the word? How do you this comes off as platitudes a lot, and I'm fighting against that, but as I don't want to do platitudes. But what I'm really interested in is the non-magic parts of the show being emphasized by the magic parts, such that they have an experience that is, if it changes them at all, it changes them in the same way that a play would change them.
And that's the focus I was taking, Kent, as opposed to, are we trying to get somebody to believe in psychic power? That's not what I was going to. You're hitting on it now. Yeah.
The thing that I'm sorry, just to really close off real quick. I mean, there's a big difference between, it's a chasm in my mind. There's a massive difference between somebody being changed by seeing the musical Next to Normal, which is one of my favorites of all time, and somebody being sort of changed because they've got like a reading from a mentalist who like also in their mentalism wants to be a therapist, kind of. And it's like that's just there's just a world of difference between that. And oftentimes those mentalists are the ones that I just wish would be my allies in this, but because they're so good, but they alas they probably won't.
I feel like we could spend another hour talking about, or three talking about this specific subject. What were you going to say, Banachek?
Yeah, let me say something about this. So, and I think you said that, Scott. These are two different things that we're talking about here, right? One is getting into that moment of convincing somebody that you're a genuine psychic and creating that emotional connection with that person by doing that. That's distasteful to me too. You know, if you think that I'm actually really talking to your dead relative and now I'm giving you information that you never had before, I am changing your way of thinking about that person. So the few times that I've ever had to give information as if I was getting it from their dead relative, I'm just spitting back the same information that they already have, that they already know. So I'm not changing their thought about that person. I'm not adding to it. I'm not taking away from it in any way. That's one way to create emotion. Another way to create that emotion, that bond, is the effect itself sometimes, the way you build that particular trick. Like my knife roulette, people in the audience really think, and people go, oh, they don't really think that you're going to be stabbed. Yes, they do, because I'm constantly getting feedback and notes, even on the cruise ships and in theaters and that, I get feedback, and people are really scared in that moment. It's creating this emotional wave that I want. A lot of people go, oh, you should never put people in that position. Well, yes, you do. It's good theater. It's what it is. That's the way I look at it. I'm creating these ups, these highs, these lows. I don't just have one plateau of high all the way through the show. I'll have a great effect, and then I'll give them a chance to take it in. Because if you got one big effect, another big effect, another big effect, by the time you get to the fourth big effect, they don't care anymore. That you haven't created that bond with the audience. You have to have this roller coaster ride that gets higher and higher, but it's higher and then a little bit lower, then higher, then a little bit lower. And you have your closure. You have your very big thing at the end. The other thing is you can do it with a story, but that story, even in a mentalism aspect, doesn't have to be about the trick or about you necessarily reading your mind. It could be about a circumstance. This is not a mentalism trick, but a perfect example of David Copperfield's story when he first started doing it, before everybody started trying to do this, when it came to snow, right? This beautiful little story, that goes back to, somebody he met and blah, 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 and all that. And people actually felt it. People would get tears in their eyes from that. It's not that they're walking away really thinking that he can create snow out of nowhere. It's not about the trick anymore. It's about that story. And that's a lot of times, like Kent is very good at this, creating emotion through stories and creating that bond in that moment. The trick is just a visual thing or a non-visual thing, so to speak, to help him tell that story, to get that emotion across. But it's the story itself is what hits the people.
It's great.
So, okay, this is one of the cool, to have both of you here and sharing and kind of like going off of each other and sharing. This is unbelievable, and I wish we had a ton more time. Unfortunately, we don't have a ton more time, but here's the thing. I know that the two of you are doing something very cool. And so I want to hear about what you all are working on.
We're buying matching outfits.
Oh, okay. You know what? I was thinking about that for the podcast. I think we should do that as well.
Kent, you want to take this one? And then I'll add.
Oh, I was muted. Yeah, my bad. So yeah, I'll take it from there.
Ken had gas and he had to mute himself. So.
Yeah, no, it was bad.
I've done that a couple of times throughout the podcast. So yeah.
Really bad. So we are working on a project where we are getting 20 people together to work on all the stuff that we've been talking about today. So it's called the.
I hope you all heard 20 people. It's limited.
Yeah. It is limited, and we've got about half of the reservations already taken up, so that's great for us. But we probably should have done this before we dropped the reservations. But either way, there's we're doing basically a masterclass, you could call it, but we're calling it the Magic Mansion Mentalism Bootcamp. The Magic Mansion is a is a venue in Orlando, Florida. And Banachek and I are taking a group of 20 people only with 3 full days of workshopping. So this is going to be August 24th evening into the 3 full days, 25, 26, 27, and then leaving the morning of the 28th. Breakfast and lunch fully catered, and people who want to get a room there at the Magic Mansion, they're welcome to it. That saves you quite a bit on a rental or whatever. This will normally be, and we've got an amazing schedule for this already worked out, but this would normally be a $2K all in for the ticket to the event, but we have decided for the I.B.M. and for members of the I.B.M. only that there will be 2 scholarships that will go out to members of the I.B.M. So there's going to be
you will have to get your own plane ticket to get there.
Oh yeah. It's an all in terms of, but you will get a room at the Magic Mansion, and you will get full access to the masterclass itself, basically. So it's going to be everyone will bring material, and we'll work on that material together. You'll get it on its feet. You'll get it going. This is very much about doing, not about talking. As I learned, things should be from speaking with people about the old the Fitch camps. They were amazing, and that's kind of the direction that this is going. Mm-hmm. So this is about getting things on its feet. This is about rehearsing, taking live notes from Banachek and myself, potentially even other theatrical professionals. And we will, when you come, you're going to leave with a roadmap of how to improve your set, your show. You can come and spend time with Banachek and myself, ask questions about business, residencies, theater, whatever you want. And all of it will apply directly to your piece that you're working on. So really excited for it.
Kent just said it, a piece. So what you would do is you'd bring in a 5-10 minute piece that you want to work on, and that's what we would work on. That's what we would help you with. But by working on that piece, it also gives you techniques and tools to work on your other routines as well. But we will focus primarily on the routine that you bring to us.
So if I'm hearing this right, now I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, but if I'm hearing this right, what I'm hearing is somebody's going to bring a routine that they're working on, something that's somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes. They're obviously
it could even be a routine that they've worked on in the past, but they want to improve that routine.
They're going to put it up in front of you in the group. So they're going to get literal stage time. So they're going to get some reps in. You're going to share notes. You're going to share ideas. You're going to maybe do a little bit of character work, maybe break some stuff down and give them some ideas. I'm guessing that they'll probably get to do it a couple more times just to put it in front of the group and see how it's improving. So what you're walking out of there with is something, not only are you going to get reps, which is what we've been talking about, you get to do it in front of real people, but you get to do it in front of like the top minds of the world right now who are going to give you the best. I mean, they're going to give you their expertise in order to make it the most effective, very best routine it possibly can be. And that all comes in a concentrated 3.5 day long period. That's unbelievable. Am I wrong? Is that basically what I'm
I don't know where we're going to get the best minds in mentalism, but Banachek will be there.
Yeah, we're still working on that.
Got it. But look, make sure I heard this as well.
Yeah.
You're going to give a scholarship away to an I.B.M. member? Did you say two? You're giving 2 scholarships away that the only thing they have to pay for is how to get there and a couple of meals, but a lot of that is all that's a lot of that's taken care of.
Yeah, breakfast and lunch is baked in, and your room will be baked in, and all you have to do is get yourself there and pay for your dinners.
So how do they
and bring a routine, of course.
And bring a routine.
Anybody that comes to this that doesn't bring a routine, they're missing an opportunity right there. Because
you're missing out on the bulk of the value, actually.
We're not going to create a routine for you. We're going to take your routine and improve it. We're going to give you all the tools. You're going to learn, and maybe your character is completely wrong, and we need you to rethink that. Right now, here the other thing is, nobody knows themselves better than who they are as a performer. And Kent had mentioned this earlier. Like, when he stage managed for me, he would come to me with ideas. And a lot of times when people come to the ideas, they think I don't think about those ideas, but I do. I put them in the back. But I also know me, and I know, what I can present and how I can present and what I can't present. So sometimes it's like, that's just not me. There's no way I'm going to be able to use that particular verbiage, or using that method doesn't work for me. And so I do know those things. So sometimes those things go out the window, but they do percolate and they're in the background. Mm-hmm. And we get that about each performer. We'll look at their insecurities. We'll take a look at who and what they are. And from our past experience, we'll be able to give them really good knowledge, more knowledge about who they are as a performer, from our experience throughout the years. Wow.
And so, just a little I'll jump in because I think I know what your question is too. It's where do they get information?
Yep, that's right.
This is an opportunity to enter into a context that a lot of magicians have not entered into, which is obviously the context of working with Banachek, who is a legend, working with me, who I do card tricks as well. And but the context is a proper context where we are going to be putting you in a position where you're working with a team. Now you're working with a director, you're working with somebody who's going to be critiquing the writing. You're going to be working with people who are actually doing this, and you're going to and a lot of times that's hard. It's hard to pull together a team that you trust, and we're going to trust us for a couple of days. We're going to try a bunch of stuff. We're going to have a ton of fun, and you're going to let your guard down. We're going to leave the egos at the door, and we're going to have a fantastic time, and you will walk away with tremendous value. Yeah,
that's
we've put together like a digital package too that you're going to walk away with too, which is like, the value of the ticket, whatever. But the real value is the stuff that you're getting there when you're in the room. And so
this would normally cost you tens of thousands of dollars to actually do it.
Yep.
I couldn't even afford
100%. So how does somebody register for this?
Yeah. So the link that we're sending out is going to be, let me just make sure I have this right. Well, the one that we're going to send out in the email, there's going to be a link. I assume that you're going to just put it below this video on YouTube. Yep. You're also going to put it probably in the email that you guys are sending out.
Right.
Right. It's unrealproductions.co/scholarships. And that's the one that people will go to in order to get more information about the bootcamp.
Okay, give it to
and sign up.
Can't say that one more time real slow.
Yep, say it one more time.
Unrealproductions.co, not .com, .co, / scholarships.
That's awesome.
Plural.
Wow. Folks, listen, this is an unbelievable opportunity for you. If you are an I.B.M. member, you definitely need to go register for this. This is incredible. If you're not an I.B.M. member and you'd like more information on how to be an I.B.M. member, you can check out magician.org. Guys, I would love to talk to you much longer. Unfortunately, we have to bring it to a close with tremendous thanks for your time, your conversation, and your expertise. Thank you all. You were wonderful. For Banachek, Kent Axell, Scott Cantrell, Ben Young, my name is Jason Michaels. This has been the I.B.M. podcast. We'll see you next time. Thanks, guys. See you next time.
Thank you very much, guys.
Rock stars. Thank you.